So my name is Kate Agnew, and I'm currently working at Target in the Target Technology Services, TTS. And I graduated last year from undergrad, so I went to college in St. Paul at McAllister, where I studied math. And during that time, I had no idea what I wanted to go into. Senior year, I thought maybe I would do event planning because I rocked at it. And then I saw this job opening at Target, and I was really interested in it because I had experience in technology beforehand. I think probably got started in technology when I got the Sims game, and I would go online and look up all the cheat codes, and I started, playing with, firsthand coding at that point where I understood, you can manipulate things behind the scenes with what you type. From that, I started doing my own websites, and I had a blog before they were blogs, and just was always kind of a side passion of mine. So it made sense for me to look at a career in that. I started at Target in what is called their technology leadership program. So it's like a 15-month rotational program. And what was great about that is it allowed me to sample all of those different areas of technology. So I started out in support and was able to identify that that wasn't necessarily for me. Then the next one I was in was databases and working with metrics, and that was really interesting, especially with my math background. And then the third role that I was in was development, although I wasn't a programmer. So this is an answer to one of those questions of what other types of jobs are there? So I'm a business analyst now, technically, and what that means is I work really closely with the technology people at Target, as well as the marketing people. So I help bring in technologies to the stores at Target. So anything digital and guest facing is something that my team puts together. And so I just kind of coordinate with everyone and work with the technology kind of on the side and not necessarily programming, which is really what I like because I'm more of a people person and I like talking to people and engaging and just more of the strategy work rather than some of the day-to-day infrastructure details. Does that sound enough? Do you guys have any specific questions about how I got to where I'm at? I don't know where I'm going next. I've only been at Target for a year and a half, so. Yes?
Is it a certain Target, are you affiliated with a certain Target place? I don't know, is it just headquarters job?
Yeah, so we have our headquarters in downtown Minneapolis. And so I work out of the headquarters with I'm within all of the IT people. But I go to stores a lot because all of my digital stuff is in stores. So I'll go and make sure that it's running all right and everything's up and ready to go. Also, there are some stores, especially within the Twin Cities, that we test things at. So we'll do something called a proof of concept where we just have a random idea and we want to test it out. So we'll try it in maybe 5 different stores and we do it locally so that we can understand better people's reactions to it, and if it works out well, then we deploy it across almost 1,800 stores that we have. Cool, thanks.
All right, I'm Liz Tupper. If you're on Twitter, you can follow me. I'm eTupper on Twitter. My technology story started when I was 4 years old. I'm 32 now. My brother brought home a computer, one that you probably never heard of, a Commodore 64. And I was exposed to this computer and then led me to run a program that created spirography shapes that you could turn into snowflakes and all these different shapes. And I was very, very fascinated by that. And throughout my life, I destroyed computers similar to Tyler and tried to break them. And then when I was 16, and I discovered the internet, and I went, wow, this is amazing and cool, I decided to develop my first website. I didn't pursue that in my studies in college. I actually went into school to become an architect. Even though I loved computers, I didn't see anyone like myself in those fields. And I just so haphazardly was offered a job when I was 20 years old to develop websites instead of going into architecture, and I did, and I loved it. Throughout the rest of my career, I've done a lot of different things. I've done SEO, which is optimizing websites to get them in search engines. I've done account management, so working directly with clients. I've owned a video game startup in the Twin Cities along with my former business partner, Jackie. And most recently, I've been doing mobile app development. So getting phones on Android and iPhone. Kate and I work together as well with Girls in Tech.
Local organization, Girls in Tech. It's actually like a global organization, but we're part of the Minneapolis-St. Paul chapter of it. And I more recently got involved because after graduating from college, you kind of realize that you're out on your own without your preset communities, and it's kind of weird. So I was looking for ways to get involved, and being in technology, I really wanted to find other women in technology. There definitely are women in technology at Target, but when I'm at conferences, I realize that I'll be, one of only 3 women out of 60 people total. So it's still one of those areas where we need more women, and I really kind of reached out to the network that's local here to see what other people were doing.
Yeah, and why Girls in Tech actually exists is a colleague of mine and I started about 4 years ago. We were looking to find a group of women in the Twin Cities that worked in technology fields so that we can get together and mentor each other. And we were struggling finding a group that existed. And what happened was I was on Twitter 4 years ago. Didn't know what to do with Twitter. I was like, what is this thing? I randomly was following someone who was talking about this conference called She's Geeky, which is a conference for women and girls who have interest in STEM fields of science, technology, engineering, mathematics. That was happening in Washington, D.C. 3 weeks from that point in time. And I turned around to my colleague, Jackie, and was like, hey, do you want to go to this conference and bring it to the Twin Cities? And she was like, well, I've got frequent flyer tickets. So we went. And me being the person that I am, rolled into this conference, went up to the founders and said, just so you know, we're here to bring this to the Twin Cities. So I also run a conference in the Twin Cities. We're now in our 3rd year. We just had our event at the Science Museum three weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it's an unconference, so the attendees come, they set the agenda, they talk about all the sessions. We actually had 5 high school students attend that Friday day, which was MEA for you guys, I think the 20th of October. And that conference sort of was the leveraging platform to get Girls in Tech started locally. And so we use She's Geeky as this sort of annual event that partners with Girls in Tech. And with Girls in Tech, we do a lot of events throughout the year, and we're hoping to do more outreach in high schools, grade schools, so on, and looking to do maybe sort of fun events with women and girls of all ages next year as well.
It's fun. Okay, so for the She's Geeky, I was totally intimidated by it. I had no idea what an unconference would be like. So the first day I didn't suggest any topics or anything. And then I realized how easy it was to suggest topics and how kind of accessible and approachable everyone else was there. And it was one of the first times within the Twin Cities that I really felt like I found a really great group of people that I could just be myself around. So some of the topics that I came up with were like blogging, because I do still blog, and all of a sudden 10 other women came and talked to me about blogging. And I was really excited that people actually showed up to the idea that I had. And then another one was pop music. Has nothing to do with being geeky, but I felt like
Geeks do love pop music,
we
though.
do. It's kind of weird. So I'm still a big fan of Hanson. I don't know if that's way too old school for you guys, but they did Mbop back in '98, and they are still a fantastic band. You should get their stuff. Exactly, but they're still touring. They've released
We
10
were talking
records.
about Rihanna and Bruno Mars and
Kesha.
yeah, Kesha, exactly.
So still being a female, but within geeky universes.
Yeah, and I think the point about being a geek or being a female geek or working in IT is it's a diverse group of people that have a lot of different personalities and a lot of different interests. And eventually, based on the data that you were seeing in the presentation earlier, IT is going to be it's going to be the majority of the careers that exist. So you'll touch it in some way, shape, or form in the future. And I would just say, be open to it. If you don't see yourself there and you want to be there, make yourself there. I was fortunate enough to get thrown back into it as my profession, and I love it. It's who I am, and I wouldn't change that for the world, but Kate and I are also big advocates on making sure that more people like us exist, and people who may not be us but want to get into the IT field as well have those opportunities and have a support system to get there.
I don't think we had any like computer classes when I was in high school. But when I was in college, I had to take one computer science class because I was a math major, so there was just the one that was required. And I loved it. I didn't do any more of it. I was the only female actually in that class. I was one of 3 female math majors out of 40 of us, which was too bad to start with. But didn't really even see technology as being a career. And it really wasn't until I graduated when I started thinking about it and found the job in it, and was lucky enough to have my former experiences within technology to kind of get the job. I still to this day am not completely sure why they gave it to me, like a technology job when I had taken one computer science class.
Take it.
Yes, please. But I love it. It's great, and it can be whatever you want it to be. You know, like every single field is going to have a technology component to it. So be comfortable with it, embrace it. It's fun.
What other questions, if you have any?
We must be really thorough.
We want to thank our presenters. Okay, what we're going to do just before the pizza comes is we're going to have a still shot of our participants and our presenters. And so